A rookie cop punched a woman in the face, then dropped to his knees when he found out who she really was. You ever have one of those days where all you want is 5 minutes of peace? That's all Danielle Carter was looking for. Just a minute to breathe. It was late, past midnight. The kind of hour where most folks are asleep and the ones still up are either working a double shift or trying to outrun something. Danielle fell into that first group. She'd just finished a 14-hour day at the precinct, and her mind was fried. She wasn't in uniform, just sweatpants, a hoodie, and a cap pulled low. No badge in sight, no gun on her hip. She wasn't trying to be Chief Carter tonight. She was just Danielle, tired, hungry, and out of creamer. The 7-Eleven on East Front Street in Toledo, Ohio, was her usual late-night spot. Quiet. Familiar. The guy behind the counter always gave her a nod, even when she came in half-dead from work. That night, she parked her car in the corner of the lot, under the busted street light, and walked in with the kind of slow shuffle that said she was running on fumes. Inside, it was empty, just her and the cashier. She grabbed a small basket and tossed in some coffee creamer, a bag of chips, 2 protein bars, and a cold bottle of water. Her eyes were heavy, but her guard was never fully down. You don't survive 11 years in law enforcement, especially as a black woman, without learning how to keep your head on a swivel. She paid, gave the cashier a tired smile, and stepped back outside. That's when she saw him, a white police cruiser idling near her car, lights off, windows tinted. At first, she didn't think anything of it. Cops sit in parking lots all the time, might have been catching up on reports or finishing a break. But then the door opened, and out stepped a young, clean-shaven white guy in a crisp Toledo PD uniform. He had that cocky walk, the kind of walk that screams, "I run things around here, Mao," even if nobody asked him to. Danielle's heart didn't pound. She wasn't scared. She was annoyed. She'd seen this kind of cop before. Eager, jumping at shadows, trying too hard to prove something. She popped the trunk of her car and started loading in her groceries. She could hear his footsteps getting closer now. "Hey!" he called out, his voice sharp. "What are you doing out here?" She turned slowly, calm, controlled. "I just bought some groceries." The officer squinted at her, his hand resting near his belt. "You live around here?" Danielle blinked. "Does it matter?" He didn't answer that, just walked closer, his eyes narrowing like he was trying to figure out where she fit in his mental checklist. "You've been standing around the lot for a while. We've had reports of suspicious activity in this area." Danielle folded her arms. "I've been here for maybe 7 minutes. Just came out of the store." "You have ID on you?" She didn't move. "Why?" Now his tone changed, firmer, less casual. "Because I asked you." Danielle could already feel where this was going. He didn't recognize her, didn't know who she was. To him, she was just another black person in a hoodie at midnight. And that was enough for him to start throwing his weight around. But this wasn't the first time Danielle had to decide between staying calm or standing up. And this time, she was too tired to back down. Danielle didn't move right away. She just stood there, arms crossed, looking Officer Knox dead in the eye. Not out of defiance, but because she had learned the hard way that when you're quiet and black, folks assume you're guilty. But if you speak up, they call you aggressive. It was a balance she was tired of keeping. The name tag on his chest read, B. Knox. She didn't know him, probably knew. Probably the type who wanted to make a name for himself by being the guy who cleans up the streets. Danielle had worked with plenty like him when she was coming up. Fresh out of the academy, high on adrenaline, low on experience, and with something to prove to every single person who didn't look like him. "I'm going to ask you again, do you have ID?" Knox said, his voice rising just a notch. Danielle exhaled slowly, reaching into her pocket for her wallet. She didn't want to escalate anything, but she also wasn't about to be treated like a criminal. She pulled it out and handed it to him. He didn't even glance at it, just snatched it, opened it, and stared at the license like it was counterfeit. "You live in Sylvania?" he asked, his eyebrows raised. "Long way from home?" "It's 10 minutes, she said dryly. "I work late. This place stays open." He looked from the ID to her face and back again, clearly not satisfied. "You sure you're not waiting for someone? Maybe doing a deal?" Danielle blinked hard. "A deal?" Knox shrugged. "People like to post up here sometimes. We've had issues. I'm just doing my job." "No," she said. "You're doing too much." That set him off. You could see it in the way his jaw clenched, the way he stepped in closer just enough to try and assert dominance. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Danielle said, her voice even. "You approached me without cause. You didn't identify yourself, and now you're throwing accusations. I told you why I'm here. You have my ID. I don't owe you anything else." He chuckled under his breath. "Oh, you think you're a lawyer now?" "No. I'm just someone who knows my rights." Knox took another step closer. Now he was in her space, close enough to smell the sweat on his neck. He looked her up and down like he was trying to find something, anything to justify what he wanted to do next. "You have anything illegal in the car?" Danielle didn't answer. "I asked you a question," he snapped. "I don't consent to any searches," she replied, calmly. "And unless you have a warrant or probable cause, this conversation is over." The moment the words left her mouth, you could see it shift behind his eyes, that flicker, that split-second decision, where ego outweighs reason. He grabbed her wrist. "Hey!" Danielle shouted, pulling back instinctively. "Don't touch me!" "You want to act like you're in charge? Let's go," he said, reaching for his cuffs. Danielle backed up. "I didn't do anything wrong. Get your hands off me." Knox grabbed her again, harder this time. Danielle struggled, trying to break free, but she was tired, too tired to fight off a man hopped up on control. He shoved her against the side of her car, hard enough to knock her shoulder into the mirror. The sound echoed across the lot. Danielle cried out. The bag of groceries hit the ground, milk spilled and chips scattered everywhere. "Stop resisting," Knox barked. "I'm not resisting. You're assaulting me." Then came the punch, right to the side of her head. Quick, brutal, and so unnecessary. She dropped to one knee, gasping. A passing car hit the brakes across the street. The driver stared, unsure whether to stop or keep going. A woman by the ice machine peeked out from around the corner, phone in hand, already filming. Danielle coughed. Her vision was spinning. Knox stood over her, breathing hard, his hands still near his belt, like he was waiting for her to fight back. She didn't. She just looked up at him with blood on her lip and fire in her eyes. "Big man, huh?" she muttered. But before Knox could respond, red and blue lights came flooding across the parking lot as backup finally arrived. And everything was about to change. 2 squad cars pulled in fast, tires screeched, lights flashed across the lot like an alarm finally woke the world up. Out of the first car came Officer T.K. James, tall, stocky, built like he played linebacker back in the day. Behind him, Officer Megan Witt, slim and sharp-eyed, already clocking everything with a kind of quiet precision. The second car carried two rookies Danielle didn't recognize, but it wouldn't matter. One of these officers was about to recognize her, and everything was going to shift. Knox turned around, trying to compose himself, trying to look like he had things under control, but there was no hiding the scene. A black woman down on one knee, face swollen, blood trailing from her mouth, groceries all over the ground, and a white cop standing over her with clenched fists. Tariq's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Yo, what the hell happened here?" "She was resisting," Knox snapped back, already on the defensive. "Wouldn't show ID, got aggressive. I had to restrain her." Danielle looked up at Tariq, their eyes locked. He blinked once, then again, and then everything in his posture changed. He took a cautious step forward. "Chief Carter?" Knox turned around, confused. "What?" Tariq crouched down next to her. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Danielle nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving Knox. "I'm fine, just hurting." Knox looked from her to Tariq and then back. "Wait, Chief?" Officer Whitlow stepped forward now, taking in the scene with cold fury building behind her calm face. "Chief Danielle Carter," she said slowly. "She's the new chief over at Precinct 12. You didn't recognize her." Knox's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Whitlow snapped. "You're supposed to assess a situation before you escalate it, not start swinging like you're at a damn bar fight." Knox stumbled backward, like he'd just been slapped himself. He looked down at Danielle, still kneeling by her car. His face turned pale. Tariq helped her to her feet. "We need an ambulance," he said, speaking into his radio. "And get internal affairs on the line now." Knox didn't speak. He just stood there, his arms limp at his sides, his eyes wide, like he couldn't quite grasp the magnitude of what he'd just done. His career, his reputation, his sense of superiority cracked wide open in one moment. Danielle wiped the blood from her lip. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear, from fury. "You still want to check my car for drugs, Officer Knox?" she said, steady as a rock. I didn't know Sazarai. There ain't the double over here. I know. I saw the bus this sadat has and des. Fabas say. Damn but if master bolo bevier why. Apone es by besserai be des was hana where I heard. You were in a hoodie. You looked like. What? She snapped. Like someone who doesn't belong. Someone who fits your high crime checklist. He didn't answer. The woman by the ice machine was still filming. Danielle saw the red light blinking on her phone. The world was watching now. It wasn't just a traffic stop anymore. It was a story. One that would spread like wildfire by morning. The medics arrived and began checking her vitals. One of them whispered something about a possible concussion. Another helped her sit down on the curb. And Knox, he dropped to one knee. Not to help, not to apologize. Just like someone trying to disappear into the asphalt. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he mumbled. "You didn't see me," Danielle said. That was the problem. He stayed there still, like if he moved, the weight of what he'd done would collapse on him all at once. Tariq walked over to Whitlow, his voice low. "We're going to need his body cam and store footage." "I'm on it," she said, already walking toward the first entrance of the 7-Eleven. Danielle sat still, her hand pressed to her cheek, where the pain was starting to throb harder now that the adrenaline was wearing off. "Don't let him bury this," she said softly to Tariq. He nodded. "We won't." But Danielle already knew this wouldn't just be about her. This moment would echo far past the parking lot in Toledo. The question now was who was going to listen. Officer Bradley Knox was still kneeling by the car, his hands limp at his sides, as if all the power he'd come in with had drained from his body. And maybe it had. Because what do you do when the person you just assaulted turns out to be your superior's superior? The silence in the parking lot was thick. Nobody moved for a long minute except the paramedics, who gently guided Danielle to sit upright and started checking her pupils with a small flashlight. "She's concussed," one of them said to Tariq. "We're taking her in." Mild head trauma. Could have been worse. Danielle flinched as they checked. Behind her ear, where a small knot had already started to swell. Worse wasn't something she wanted to imagine. Meanwhile, Knox looked like he was trying to shrink into the pavement. His face had gone pale, like the blood had stopped circulating altogether. The badge on his chest suddenly felt like a 1,000 Dowel LB anchor, dragging him underwater. "You didn't recognize her?" Tariq asked, his voice heavy with disbelief. "Didn't even think to ask her name before putting hands on her?" Knox stammered. I thought she was—" "You thought she was what?" Whitlow cut in sharply. She'd returned from speaking with the cashier, who handed over the store surveillance footage without hesitation. "Go ahead. Finish the sentence." He didn't. Instead, he looked at Danielle as if hoping she'd bail him out. She didn't. She simply looked at the man who'd just used his authority as a weapon and waited to see if he had enough courage left to own what he'd done. "I thought she was a suspect," Knox finally muttered, his voice small. "I didn't know who she was." "That's the point," Danielle said, her voice calm but steeled. "You didn't know, but you assumed. You didn't take a second to consider I could have been a nurse, a teacher, a social worker, anything. You saw a hoodie and brown skin and made a call." Knox's mouth moved, but no words came out. What could he say? There was no policy, no handbook line, no standard protocol that could excuse what had just happened. Tariq glanced at Danielle. "Want me to call your deputy?" She shook her head. "Not yet. Let's keep this right here. Right now. Internal affairs can get involved after I get checked out." Officer Whitlow stepped beside her, speaking softly. "You sure you want to wait on the formal complaint?" Danielle nodded. "Yes. Let him sit with it for a minute." She turned back toward Knox. "You put me on the ground, Officer Knox," she said, "because you didn't see a human being. You saw a problem, a threat, something to control." "I made a mistake," he whispered, his eyes still fixed on the pavement. "You made more than a mistake," she said. "You made a decision. One that could have gotten me killed. And if I didn't have a badge, if you hadn't been caught on camera, what would have happened then?" No one said a word, because they all knew the answer. Whitlow finally broke the silence. "He needs to be taken off duty tonight." Tariq nodded. "Agreed." Knox looked up, startled. "Wait. You're not under arrest," Tariq said, already walking back to his cruiser. "But you're done for the night. Turn over your firearm and body cam. You'll hear from Gaye by the morning." Knox hesitated, then slowly unhooked his gun and handed it over, along with the small black camera clipped to his shirt. It was surreal to watch. Just 20 minutes ago, he was puffed up and barking orders. Now he stood quiet, uncertain, exposed. Danielle eased herself into the back of the ambulance, her breathing slow and measured. But inside, her mind was spinning. Not with pain, but with purpose. Because the truth is, this wasn't just about her. This was about every black woman who had ever been second-guessed, dismissed, or accused simply for existing. It was about how power in the wrong hands becomes violence, and how even those who swear to serve can fall short, dangerously short, when bias takes the wheel. Before the doors closed, Danielle called out to Knox. He looked up. "Next time," she said, "start by asking a name. You might save yourself a whole lot of regret." But regret wasn't going to undo what happened tonight. And for Danielle, the real work was only just beginning. The hospital was quiet, not peaceful, just quiet. Danielle hated that kind of silence. It reminded her of being 11 years old, sitting in the ER with her brother after he'd been roughed up by an off-duty cop in a grocery store parking lot. Back then, nobody believed them. This time, cameras were involved, but even with footage, even with bruises, the silence still lingered. A nurse I named Shannon carefully cleaned the cut near her lip. "You're lucky he didn't break your cheekbone," she said gently. Danielle winced. "I guess that makes it a good night, huh?" Shannon gave her a knowing look. "You'd be surprised how many people come in here with similar stories." "People with badges?" Danielle asked. Shannon didn't answer. She just pressed the gauze a little tighter. Around 2:30 a.m., the door cracked open, and in walked Deputy Chief Lionel Parks, a solid, middle-aged black man who'd mentored Danielle since her first year on the force. He didn't speak right away, just stood in the doorway, his arms folded, his eyes scanning her injuries with a tight jaw. "I just saw the footage," he said finally. "Jesus, D." Danielle sat up straighter, brushing her hoodie sleeve over the dried blood on her chin. "They got the audio, too. Clear as day," she nodded. "Then we need to act fast before they do damage control." Lionel sighed and pulled a chair close to the bed. "IA is on it. The Chief of Staff's office already issued a statement about an ongoing investigation and commitment to fairness. You know the dance." She looked at him. "I don't want the dance. I want change." "You think I don't?" he asked. "But you know how slow this machine moves. We can't control how the department spins it. You're not just a victim in this. You're the chief. They're going to use that." Danielle's eyes narrowed. "Let them. Maybe it'll make the next Knox think twice before putting hands on someone who looks like me." Lionel sighed again. "You're sure you want to press charges?" She didn't answer right away. She looked out the window where the city still slept under sodium lights and broken promises. "I don't want revenge," she said finally, "but I want accountability. That man thought he had the right to decide who belonged. And if he could do that to me, someone with power, what's he doing to people without it?" Lionel nodded slowly. "All right. Then we do this right. Paperwork's being filed. Body cam footage has been secured, and you'll be off duty for the next few days. Standard after an assault." Danielle laughed, dry and short. "Not like I'll be resting." "You better," he said, pointing a finger at her. "And not just for your body, for your mind, too. This ain't just a headline. This is trauma." She stared at her reflection in the window, swollen lip, bruised eye, nothing she hadn't seen on victims 100 times before. "I'm used to trauma," she said softly. "Yeah," Lionel replied. "That's the problem." She didn't argue. A few hours later, she was discharged. The air outside hit her like a slap, cold and wet with rain. Lionel offered her a ride, but she shook her head. She needed the walk. As she stepped through the hospital doors, a young woman from the local news crew spotted her. Microphone ready, camera on. "Chief Carter," the woman called out. "Do you have a statement about what happened tonight?" Danielle paused. She thought about how tired she was. How easy it would be to keep walking, but she didn't. She turned to the camera, looked straight into the lens. "I have one thing to say," she said, her voice steady. "No badge, no title, no amount of training will ever protect you from someone who's already decided you're guilty. Tonight wasn't about me. It was about what happens when bias goes unchecked. This is about all the people who don't have cameras, who don't wear badges, who don't get believed. We can't fix what we don't face. So now, we face it." But speaking out was just the beginning. Danielle knew there'd be backlash, politics, anger, but she also knew silence was no longer an option. Not for her and not for anyone watching. By morning, the video had made its rounds. Twitter, Facebook, the evening news, talk radio, group chats. It didn't matter where people got their information. Everyone had seen Officer Bradley Knox punch a black woman in a parking lot, bark orders at her like she was subhuman, and then drop to his knee when he realized who she was. Some people were shocked, others weren't. For some, it was confirmation. For others, it was denial. But what it couldn't be anymore was ignored. Toledo's mayor issued a carefully crafted statement about deep regret and commitment to training. The police department announced Knox had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Danielle's name trended for hours. Chief Carter, the woman who stood her ground. But inside her house, Danielle sat alone in her kitchen, still in her hoodie, staring at a half-eaten bowl of cereal that had gone soggy. Her phone buzzed every few seconds. Friends, journalists, activists, strangers. Some messages were supportive. Others accused her of baiting the officer, of playing victim. She knew that would come. She just hadn't expected it to sting the way it did. That evening, Lionel called again. "We need to talk," he said. She met him at the department's community meeting hall, neutral, ground. The room was half filled with citizens, activists, clergy, and a few brave officers. Cameras lined the back. Knox was not in the room. Danielle took her seat at the front, her shoulders stiff but her chin up. One of the community leaders, a woman named Felicia Monroe, spoke first. "Chief Carter, thank you for showing up. That matters. But now we need more than words. What's going to change?" Danielle took the mic. "I can't promise change overnight," she said, "but I can promise transparency and consequences. Officer Knox's behavior was not just wrong, it was dangerous. He didn't just fail protocol, he failed humanity." Someone clapped. Others nodded quietly. Danielle continued. "This department will undergo a full audit. Every use of force report from the last 2 years will be reviewed, and starting next month, we're launching a citizen-led oversight board with real authority." That turned some heads. "Is that going to be enough?" someone in the crowd asked. Danielle shook her head. "No, it won't be. But it's a start, and starting is better than staying quiet." After the meeting, people lingered. Some came to shake her hand. Some still didn't trust her. She understood that. Later that night, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number she didn't recognize. She almost ignored it, but something told her to pick up. Chief Carter?" It was Knox. His voice was small, like someone trying to apologize without fully knowing how. She didn't say anything right away. I'm not, calling, to make excuses, he said. I've been suspended, and they say I might lose my badge. She waited. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, he said. Not just because of who you are, but because I didn't stop to ask. I didn't see you. I just reacted. Danielle finally spoke. What you saw, that wasn't about me. That was about your training, your mindset, your assumptions, and I'm not the only one who's paid for them. I know. No, she said. I don't think you do. Not yet. But maybe one day you will. A long silence hung between them. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said. I'm not ready to, she replied. Click. Shh. She ended the call. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Some bridges aren't supposed to be rebuilt. Some people need to sit in the discomfort of what they've done. That's not cruelty. That's the beginning of accountability. The next morning, Danielle put on her badge, not because it made her safe, but because it made her visible. She stood in front of her precinct and gave a press conference. No fancy suit, no PR rep, just her and her truth. I wear this badge knowing full well it doesn't shield me from bias. It never has. But I wear it because someone has to. Someone has to prove that power doesn't have to mean abuse. That justice isn't about control. It's about care. And that real strength starts with knowing when to listen. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. This isn't just my story, it's our reality. And if we want better, we have to stop looking away. We have to look directly at the problem, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it is. And if you're watching this right now, ask yourself, who do you see first? A person or a problem? Because the answer to that question, it matters more than you think. If this story moved you, if it made you think, share it. Speak on it. Don't wait until it's someone you know. Let's be louder than silence. Let's be braver than routine. Music.